Streamers. What the fuck is up? What the fuck is poppin'? Talking into money up in for the motherfucking pockets, you dig? We're back with another one. A nigga is bored again, and so we just gonna gallivant around YouTube and react to a bunch of random shit until we find one of our niggas. 15 boys.
An unapologetic, no-frills take on what would really happen if human beings developed superpowers. The Boys shows us that godlike power doesn't equal benevolence, that superiority can very easily turn into tyranny and insanity. But you know what's crazy? The characters we see in the show are watered-down versions of their original counterparts from Garth Ennis's comics. And if you think the show's messed up, you're not ready for the rest of this video. Today, we'll be looking at the real disturbing stories of 15 Boys characters that were deluded to their core. And we'll give you a trigger warning right now because you're gonna need it.
I can't stop.
A-Train. The story of Reggie Franklin is perhaps one of the best redemption arcs in recent memory. Eric Kripke gave A-Train a developing conscience, compelling family drama, and a complex, layered characterization involving drug addiction, struggles with morality, heart problems, and systemic racism. It makes for great TV, and Jesse T. Usher absolutely crushes the portrayal of this bad guy turned good. But it also completely washes away the unrepentant cruelty of the original character. In the comics, there is no redemption arc for A-Train, because he doesn't deserve it. He's an unapologetic, remorseless monster who laughs about killing Robin after feeling sorry about it for the grand total of 1 second. He's involved in Starlight's assault, unlike the show, where it's just the Deep, and he dislikes her popularity so much that he tries assaulting her again. She manages to get away from him by temporarily blinding him, and that's something we'll never see in the show. Neither will we see him get his original fate, because comic A-Train is an immature, purely vile antagonist who gets exactly what he deserves when he's kidnapped by the Boys and Huey literally kicks his head off. He kills his first girlfriend and assaulted his other girlfriend twice, and he did it all while wearing that idiotic grin on his face. It's safe to say we like Reggie Franklin, because if we got comic book A-Train, people would start hating on Jesse T. Usher for portraying him. Ezekiel. Ezekiel from the show is a loose adaptation of Oh Father from the comic, which gets a bit complicated in the finale season of The Boys because Oh Father is now canon. He's a parody of evangelical megachurch leaders who hide their predation behind religious curtains. Oh Father systemically grooms, abuses, and discards young boys he labels as his sidekicks. And while Amazon's Oh Father has a similar backstory, the show never goes so far as to show us how he treats his sidekicks. And before his inclusion, Ezekiel was his replacement. And he's a bad guy, but he's not nearly as bad as being an unrepentant child molester. Ezekiel is just a hypocritical, closeted pastor who runs Capes for Christ and likes to make out with men at a private soup club while preaching against homosexuality in public. He's corrupt and twisted, yes, and the fact that Butcher kills him takes away one more disturbing element from the church. But he lacks the systemic, deeply disturbing Epstein-level predation of his comic book inspiration. And what makes this worse is the fact that the real Oh Father is now a part of the series, and he's cozying up with Ashley Barrett of all people, another known sexual deviant. So really, we got off easy with Ezekiel in a way, because things could have been a lot worse had Eric Kripke decided to make him quote-unquote comic accurate. Lamplighter. The show's Lamplighter is given a sympathetic arc with genuine remorse, leading to a tragic suicide. His death was faked. He was forced to help Vought torture and kill people at Sage Grove in the name of experimentation, and before his death, he helped the Boys out by assisting in their break-in to Vought Tower. We will admit it was a little jarring seeing Shawn Ashmore watching soup porn like it's a TV show. But hey, not all characters can be perfect, right? But even as vile as show Lamplighter was before his suicide, the comic version was way worse. Because in many ways, he was Aerys Targaryen, aka the Mad King. In the comics, the Seven tried to stop 9/11 from happening. Yeah, that's a real thing. And when they failed, Lamplighter retired. Vought covered it up, the Boys found out, and when they blackmailed the Seven, Lamplighter lashed out by whining about being hurt in the ribs and needing to bargain with these puny humans. In the show, Mallory wanted to blackmail him into becoming the CIA's mole, and him killing her grandchildren was accidental because he was looking for Mallory. But in the comics, Lamplighter dug his own grave. He decided to kill Mallory's grandchildren to send a message. And because he's a pyromaniac like Eris, Lamplighter got aroused by his fiery antics as well. In fact, he was addicted to the feeling, and this act made the Seven see him as a liability. They handed him over to the boys, who ultimately beat him to within an inch of his life before Mallory shot him in the head. But that wasn't the end for him, because Vought reanimated Lamplighter with limited intelligence, kept him locked in a basement where he would play with his own feces, and used cleaning his prison as punishment for supes who stepped out of line. As bad as Ashmore's version was, it wasn't nearly as horrific as the OG Lamplighter, and now you know why. Vic the V. Victoria Newman is honestly one of our favorite characters from Amazon's The Boys. She's a cunning, head-popping political operator who's 10 steps ahead of the competition and supremely confident in her own abilities. Claudia Dumit absolutely crushed the role of female Icarus, miscalculating her rise to power, which is a step up from the original Vic the V, because that guy is just yikes. The comics Victor Newman is something else entirely. A violent, intellectually stunted sex addict who serves as a biting parody of George W. Bush. He's both a Nepo baby and an incredibly
Hello, everybody. My name's Pam. And he's Charlie. And we are the Smiling Friends. Hello, everybody. Hello. Hello.
cruel employer. He cannot string a sentence together without coaching from handlers, and requires Secret Service agents to physically dress him before his sexual encounter. At the same time, he also makes those same agents do things no sane man would subject their employees to, including guarding him at Herogasm, which he actively participates in. His entire characterization is built around mocking his incapacity, something that would never fly in modern television. And unlike Victoria, Victor actually becomes the president of the United States. When he's killed by Homelander in the comics, we breathe a sigh of relief because it wasn't murder. It was a mercy for our eyes and brains. And compared to him, Vicky is rainbows and sunshine and sprinkles that top your softie. And some of those are even pepper. Queen Maeve. In the show, Queen Maeve has a redemption arc, a homosexual relationship with her girlfriend Elena, and even becomes a proper superhero by the time she assists Butcher and Starlight with taking down Stormfront as well as Homeland. And most importantly, Maeve is still alive, though depowered. And when she goes off into the sunset with her girlfriend, we're actually happy for her. That can't be said for comic book Maeve, because that girl is such a mess that even when she eventually does help out the good guys, her death feels somewhat warranted. Comic Maeve empathizes with Starlight's plight, but she tells her to suck it up matter-of-factly, not with sympathy. And despite having more of a moral compass than the rest of the Seven, she still indulges in the same vices as all of them. She's frequently seen drinking martinis or having group sex with several bodybuilders, and she's had more abortions than she can count. Despite all that, Maeve still has a couple of children running around the world, and at least her end is somewhat heroic. She helps the boys plant bugs in Vought Tower, which is a task delegated to Huey in the show, and when she's discovered, she fights Homelander and Black Noir to the death. That's another aspect of her character that's heavily changed by the TV series, because in the comics, the reason she breaks up with Homie is because he's tricked her into having sex with Black Noir after making her wear a blindfold. Maeve is abused in a way that makes her jaded nature a lot more justifiable than her show counterparts drinking and sexcapades with Butcher. And while we're not trying to belittle the trauma that Dominique McElliott's Maeve experiences, we can't say that her story isn't watered down with a straight face. Blarney Cock and the Teenage Kicks. This character represents one of Enos's most controversial uses of shock humor, as does the rest of the team. But at least in the show, Sage and A-Train have proper, fleshed out characters with some redeeming qualities. The rest of Teenage Kicks isn't on their level and are probably just as bad as their comic book counterpart, but they aren't feral sex and drug addicts, and that's just a fact. All of them decide to attack the boys en masse when they leak their private activities to the world, but one of them in particular gets a fate we're glad we'll never see. Blarney Cock is one of those Queen Maeve kids we mentioned in the previous entry. He's conceived on her by the Legend, who's a very different character in the comics as well, and initially, he's raised in an orphanage in Ireland. Once his powers activate, Vought recruits him into Teenage Kicks, and there he indulges in the same antics as the rest of the team, until he's accidentally killed by Huey in his first soup confrontation. That seems like a normal thing for this series, right? But the punchline is that a hamster was found stuffed inside his when his corpse was recovered by Vought. And when Blarney Cock is later reanimated as a zombie, he seeks out Huey, not for revenge, but to reclaim the hamster for continued use. He also has the same obsession with feces as zombie Lamplighter, and the entire bit intersects gross out humor with homophobic gerbling mythology in a way that would never fly today. This is why Blarney Cock was cut entirely from the show. Well, this and his parentage. As for the rest of the teenage kicks, they're still debauched hedonists, no doubt about it, but they're not nearly as bad as their comic book counterpart.
God damn. Brother's got a love sausage.
Love Sausage. Love Sausage is one of the best gag characters in The Boys because, well, Brother's got a love sausage. He got his name from his enormously long prehensile, which somehow isn't even the worst genitalia-based superpower in this franchise. Every time we see him, we're worried about MM because you know that sausage is going to find a way around his neck one way or another. But here's the thing. The show reduced him to a comedy bit after introducing him as a tortured Sage Grove test subject. He's stripped of his backstory, his heroism, and he exists solely to torture Mother's Milk and his macho man image. In the comics, Vasily is a tragic, surprisingly wholesome Russian ex-superhero who runs a bar and genuinely helps the boys on several of their missions. His endowment is just a bizarre side effect of his powers that's clearly visible through his supersuit. But it isn't prehensile, and he's a powerhouse. One of the only soups who's actually a superhero. Garth Ennis's Boys had a global feel to it because many of its characters came from all across the globe. Whereas in the show, only a tiny percentage of soups are based outside the United States. The real Love Sausage is a man who dies a heroic, brutal death, fighting a man he once considered to be his comrade. He is how we know Butcher's an actual psychopath, and we'll get to him by the end of this video, but it pains us to see one of the only truly good characters from the comics being reduced to a sight gag with a tired punchline.
If not, I will kill both of them, and when you finish screaming, crying, I will kill you too.
Little Nina. The show's Little Nina is just a standard, albeit ruthless, Russian mobster. Her interactions with Frenchie and Kimiko are menacing, yes, and the fact that she tortures Frenchie by bringing up his traumatic past, both as her hitman and with his father, is uncomfortable to watch. But Katya Winter's Nina is remarkably tame and less ambitious compared to her comic counterpart, and she probably won't get the true Little Nina's bizarre and grotesque demise. In the comics, Little Nina's nickname is Literal, because she's unbelievably petite. She's a Russian mobster who's addicted to masturbation and aligned with Vought. Her goal is to overthrow the Russian government and become its new president. So she creates a disposable army of soups using a defective bootleg version of Compound V with Vaught's help. When a specific radio frequency is activated in their proximity, all these soups' heads would explode simultaneously, and her plan was to use them to take over the Kremlin and then kill them all to take over the premiership. Sadly, that was never going to work out because Vought didn't trust her. Butcher found the bomb they left in her private jet and planted it in one of Nina's favorite toys, which she detonated when she was playing with it, leading to one of the most infamously disturbing deaths in the comics. Really, the only thing that show and comic Nina have in common is their obsession with sex, because in every other aspect, they're completely different characters.
So you get Homelander, but I can't get Soldier Boy. You're a fucking hypocrite, Butcher.
Mother's Milk's entire family. Perhaps the biggest wash job in the entirety of Amazon's The Boys is what they do to Mother's Milk, or more accurately, what they do to his history. Because in the comics, Ryan Butcher isn't the first natural-born soup. Mother's Milk is. The show gives Marvin Milk a stable, loving background, a stern but supportive wife, and a daughter that thinks he's her hero. Yeah, they hit a Todd-sized speed bump in the road, but it's clear that MM, Monique, and Janine are a unit. And most importantly, Mother's Milk is not a soup. He's a man whose family was wronged by soups, Soldier Boy in particular, and he spends his life trying to bring them to justice like his father. In the comics, Marvin was born a soup with increased strength, durability, and intelligence because he had Compound V in his vein. But to keep himself stable, he has to periodically drink his mother's breast milk, even at the age of 40, which is why he's called Mother's Milk. The show changed his surname from Wallace to Milk to explain that moniker without having to touch on this obviously unsettling topic. He had a brother called Michael, who also had Compound V in his veins, but his powers caused his body to expand rapidly, which killed him when the helmet he was wearing crushed his skull. MM's ex-wife Monique is a crack addict who, in one of the most disturbing subplots in the entire comic, recruits their teenage daughter Janine into filming incest pornography with her. And Janine herself has V in her system, which causes her to look like a teenager when she's barely 12 years old and hang out with crowds she isn't wise enough to ignore.
Definitely
Show casuals
glad
couldn't
they kept
dream
that
up this
shit out
backstory
of the
for
fucking
Mother's
show.
Milk if they
What the
wanted to,
fuck?
because it was crafted to define just how deep Vought's fangs poison every corner of life. But it's so extreme, the show erased it entirely. And this is one backstory you won't hear us complaining about. MM is the North Star of the boys, and if he was dealing with these problems in the show as well, we don't think he'd be able to do half of what he does. So yes, Mother's Milk and his whole family have their true stories watered down, but it's for the best because the truth is deeply traumatizing. John Godolkin. This character is renamed to Thomas and turned into a charred Nazi who returns to terrorize the world with his psionic power. But as crazy as Thomas Godolkin is, he's a saint compared to John Godolkin, his comic book counterpart. A clear parody of Professor X, complete with the wheelchair and everything, John Godolkin was never adapted for the show at all, and for good reason. He's a serial pedophile who kidnapped children, injected them with Compound V, and groomed and abused them to make himself their savior and quote-unquote loving father figure. He used this formula on the entire G-Men roster, who hated him, but were unable to escape him because of their conditioning. He faked their backgrounds as soup orphans he generously adopted, and while that was bad enough, in his final moments, he was about to do something even worse. How's that possible, you ask? Well, John created a new team of literal toddler soups without Vought's consent, and then the implication is that he treated them the same way he treated the G-Men before prepping them for the field. When exposed, Vought simply had a private army massacre all of Godolkin's quote-unquote kids, including Godolkin himself, because they couldn't stomach his methods and tastes. You know you're messed up when Vought keeps guys like Homelander around and eliminates you. And now you know why we called Thomas Godolkin a saint, despite his institution of a Might Makes Right curriculum and plans for installing a Nazi regime over the world. Black Noir. This is the single biggest dilution of a character from page to screen, and it's yet another moment where we're glad the show took a different approach, because if they'd have gone comic accurate with Black Noir, Amazon would have shut down. The show made Noir a loyal soldier with a tragic backstory that involves brain damage that rendered him mute and a burning hatred for Soldier Boy. Hell, we're on our second version of Black Noir right now, and while this one can fly like Homelander, he's clearly not his clone. In the comics, Black Noir is Homelander's clone, and Homie's actually aware of this fact. That's how his quote-unquote prank on Maeve came to be, and he figured that since Noir was himself, he might as well be his best friend. What he didn't know was that Vought created Noir to kill John if he went rogue, and while he was a shitty person and a worse team leader, he never did. This caused such a massive dissonance between Noir's conditioned purpose to exist and the reality he was experiencing as Homie's bestie that his mind snapped. Unable to fulfill his promise, but also wanting to do the same, Noir disguised himself as Homelander and committed most of the atrocities he's accused of in the comics, including eating a live infant, raping Becca Butcher, and desecrating corpses. In fact, Black Noir's actions are what drove Homelander into staging his global takeover, because he thought he was blacking out and actually doing those things, and he too succumbed to madness eventually. So when it was revealed that he wasn't insane and was being framed by his clone to force Vought's hand, the terror and shock on Homelander's face almost made us feel bad for him. You know you're an absolute monster if you can make us feel bad for this sack of crap, and for that reason, we're glad the show didn't adapt Black Noir accurately. Because like we said, Amazon probably would have shut down if they did. Billy Butcher. And this brings us to the final character that's been diluted by Eric Kripke. Because while Show Butcher is complex and haunted with flaws that we can see playing out on screen, Comic Butcher is an outright monster. In the show, Butcher at least makes some attempts at being honest with himself and his friend. When he offered Huey the chance to avenge Robin, he was weaponizing him, yes, but he ended up actually connecting with Huey on a much deeper level. In the comics, he was manipulating Huey as a pawn from the very beginning, and at no point did he show any genuine affection for him. In the comics finale, after the boys have essentially won, he murders Mother's Milk, Frenchie, and the female of the species to stop them from interfering with his plans to detonate Compound V and wipe out all soups. And also because they were soups themselves. His plan included collateral human casualties as well, because he went to kill the legend, but he had a heart attack before he could. Garth Ennis himself said writing those deaths felt like murder, and the fact that Butcher wanted Huey to kill him as a way of absolving his sins is the ultimate prick move, because in the show, at least his guilt is somewhat justified. He sees Huey as his little brother Lenny, and Butcher wants to be killed by Lenny. But in the comics, he bangs Raynor in her office, kills Love Sausage to stop him from sabotaging his genocide plan, and does all sorts of things to prove he's the real villain of the series. In the show, Butcher's just a man with demons, and right now, his demons are getting the best. That's why he's a completely watered down version of his comic book counterpart. And if you've made it this far, congratulations, because that's our list of every character that has been diluted in Amazon's The Boy. Let us know your thoughts in the comments below, and like, share, and subscribe to our channel for more boys content all summer long. We'll see you guys real soon with yet another video. Until then, stay safe and have a nice day.
Welcome to Strike Gently. We sell woven blankets.
We have over 80 different blanket designs to choose from. They're all 100%.
Evil Superman is a character trope that has exploded in popularity over the last 10 or so years. There's something about a superhero using their power for evil instead of good that fascinates audiences. There are many characters who follow this archetype, and what's interesting is that each of them is evil for different reasons. Let's take 3 of the most popular examples: Homelander, Omni-Man, and Superman from the Injustice games. All of them are evil, but for very different motivations. Let's start with Omni-Man. Nolan is, first and foremost, a warrior. Whatever crimes he committed, he did them in the name of the empire he served. Indoctrinated from birth, it's no surprise that he was so dedicated to his mission. Omni-Man's ultimate goal was simple: conquest. Taking control of Earth for the Viltrum Empire. Homelander, however, is different. He never truly wanted to conquer or rule the world, even though he attempted it at certain points. Keep in mind, this is the comic book version of Homelander, who is quite different from his television counterpart. While the show portrays him as a complete sociopath, in the comics he's more of a narcissistic celebrity, who only really cares about 2 things: money and power. For most of the comic run, Homelander's trying to live his life as an arrogant celebrity who always gets what he wants. In fact, most of the truly horrific acts attributed to him were actually committed by Black Noir in his name, and Homelander only truly snapped after being manipulated by everyone around him. Finally, there's Superman from the Injustice games. Once a hero not much different from his Prime counterpart, he descended into becoming a dictator. Unlike the other 2, his goal was noble, to establish order. But it was the methods he used that made him a villain. He restricted people's freedom and eradicated all opposition so he could rule Earth as an absolute authority. So, we have 3 similar characters with very distinct motives: conquest, power, and the desire to impose order. In theory, they can be reasoned with. After all, one of them even had a full redemption arc, but the same can't be said about the main star of today's video. A character so evil that he truly can't be reasoned with. A villain who's genuinely irredeemable. The Plutonian. You see, the Plutonian never cared about money, conquest, or fame. He simply sought to inflict as much pain as possible. He has the highest kill count among all the characters mentioned today, having destroyed not just entire cities, but entire countries, killing tens of millions. The very first thing we see the Plutonian do is murder the entire family of another superhero, sparing no one. His actions cause global panic and the collapse of world governments. In his comic book series Irredeemable, writer Mark Waid created perhaps one of the most interesting evil Superman characters ever conceived. If you're familiar with Waid's work, you know he's something of a Superman fanboy. After all, he wrote Kingdom Come and Birthright, 2 of the most beloved Superman stories of all time. He understands the character deeply, and that understanding is clearly reflected in Irredeemable. In today's video, we'll explore the story of the Plutonian, his origin, his superhero career, and what ultimately made him snap. This guy's probably one of the pettiest and most evil characters in fiction, so you might want to stick around until the end. So without further delay, let's explore Irredeemable. Part 1. Origin and the Early Days. What makes the Plutonian interesting is that he wasn't originally a villain. He used to be the most beloved and trusted superhero in the entire world. For the longest time, no one knew his origin or even his true identity. He was distrusted by both the public and his fellow superheroes. They referred to him as Tony, and as we later learned, this was just one of his aliases, as his real name was known to very few. While he appeared to be a complete Boy Scout on the surface, deep underneath he hid his true self, a traumatized kid who craved validation. Throughout his childhood, the Plutonian's emerging powers made his life difficult. He went from one foster family to another, unable to find a true home, as each new parent eventually became terrified of his abilities. He recalls that his earliest memory was being fed up with how others perceived him and escaping into a forest near the city of Colville. There, he became something of an urban legend known as Wolf Boy. One of the local teenagers sought him out, and when he actually found the Plutonian, he was attacked and sent to the hospital. Unknown to them both, that teenager would one day become Max Damage, a supercriminal and one of the Plutonian's greatest enemies. The Plutonian notes that this was the first time he felt rage, which was followed by another emotion, mortification. He later crash-landed into a church and was soon adopted by a couple who were unable to conceive a child of their own. Unfortunately, he wouldn't stay with that family for long. He was adopted at 5.5 and returned to foster care shortly after turning 7. At some point, his adoptive parents finally managed to conceive a child of their own, whom they named Joey and referred to as a miracle. When the baby was brought home from the hospital, the young Plutonian begged his parents to let him hold him. When he did, he squeezed the baby too hard, leaving Joey with permanent mental and physical damage. He was confined to a wheelchair and unable to form basic sentences, requiring constant care. His experience with the next foster family turned out to be even worse. While he loved his mother, his father was an aggressive man who frequently abused his wife. After witnessing the abuse, Plutonian blasted his father, killing him. He then hugged his mother, saying that this time he would stand his ground and not allow her to send him back to the orphanage. He tried to shower her with love, believing that would stop her from fearing him, but it didn't work. She was completely terrified of him and became increasingly depressed and withdrawn over time. While Plutonian was at school, he overheard his foster mother talking with his super hearing. She spoke about how terrified she was, and the conversation was followed by the click of a gun. The Plutonian rushed home, something he could do in less than a second, but sound travels slower. By the time he arrived, his mother was already dead. Let's move to his last foster family, the only one Plutonian truly considered important. He was adopted by Bill Hardigan, the only parent who didn't fear him. In fact, Bill seemed excited by his abilities. The Plutonian described him as the most generous man alive, always helping neighbors and people in need. At this point, he went by the name Dan Hardigan. While loving, Bill was also very stern, believing that discipline was crucial for a child like Dan. He punished him for lying and tried to instill strong values in him. On Christmas, when Dan received a gift he really wanted, Bill made him wrap it back up and donate it to children in a hospital instead. Bill also helped him train and control his powers. When he believed Dan was ready, Bill proposed an idea. His son would become a superhero known as the Plutonian, an acronym standing for piety, loyalty, utility, truthfulness, and order. Bill insisted that he wouldn't wear a mask so he could earn people's trust. He even got him a job at a radio station, explaining that he should maintain a civilian life as well. During the conversation, Bill mentioned that Dan would make both him and his mother proud, but the Plutonian simply replied, "Not mother." He revealed that she had an inoperable tumor and that he had watched it grow using his powers. When asked why he hadn't said anything earlier, he responded that they should put their own concerns last, just as his father had taught him. A week later, both Bill and his wife died in a car accident on their way back from the hospital. Despite the loss, Dan followed his father's teachings and became a superhero. He remembers his first public appearance. During an air show, disaster struck and two planes collided. One of the pilots died instantly, but the other could still have been saved. That's when the Plutonian arrived. He pulled the pilot from the cockpit but realized he had made a rookie mistake. He hadn't considered that the plane would crash into the crowd and kill dozens of people. He had to choose: save the pilot or abandon him and save the crowd. In the end, he managed to do both by unjamming the pilot's parachute. The Plutonian later remarked that this was the first time in his life he felt appreciated. For once, he wasn't feared. People admired him for his powers. The event was recorded by the press, and the
Second, yeah, as you can see, I'm sweating like a bitch. Back of the neck was wet, niggas. God damn.
the Plutonian became a celebrity overnight. He continued being a superhero, maintaining a Boy Scout image, but throughout his career, he wasn't driven by a desire to save people. He craved the public's love and affection, and any form of criticism hurt his ego immensely. Of the many enemies he fought, two stand out: the aforementioned Max Damage and Modius, his arch-nemesis. Max Damage is an interesting villain. Though he grew up in a privileged family, he had a difficult relationship with his parents and eventually turned to a life of crime. At some point, he gained superpowers through a laboratory experiment. He became invulnerable and super strong, and his strength increased the longer he stayed awake. However, whenever he slept, his powers reset, rendering him powerless for 1 hour. He could stay awake for long periods and become incredibly strong, but he would also grow disoriented and fatigued from lack of sleep. As a side effect of his powers, Max Damage lost most of his physical senses and couldn't feel pain. During one of his robberies, he was stopped by the Plutonian, who immediately recognized him as the teenager he had attacked years ago. The Plutonian hated Max because he was the first victim of his outburst, and every time he fought him, he felt the same shame he had experienced in childhood. Another villain the Plutonian fought was Modius, his true archenemy. The Plutonian admitted he never understood Modius's motivations. He was a super genius with one of the brightest minds on the planet, yet also deeply psychotic. Other criminals had clear motivations: money, power, fear, but Modius had none. He specifically targeted the Plutonian to make his life miserable and rarely, if ever, went after other superheroes. At some point, Modius vanished without explanation, and not even the Plutonian knew where he had gone. While fighting another villain at a charity event, the Plutonian met his future lover. During the chaos, a woman named Alana helped evacuate civilians. This impressed the Plutonian, who praised her actions and asked her out on a date. The moment was captured by reporters, and Alana became a minor celebrity. Despite the attention, she kept a low profile and continued working at a radio station, unaware that her coworker Dan Hardigan was actually the Plutonian. One day, Dan revealed his identity to her, but didn't get the reaction he expected. Alana lashed out, saying she had been lied to and humiliated throughout their relationship. Other coworkers at the station overheard the argument and—
What? Nah, this is crazy, son. Yo, I can't, bro. I can't, bro. That just pissed me the fuck off. Yo, what?
Realizing Dan was the Plutonian, foolishly decided to announce it on the radio. Before the broadcast could go out, the Plutonian rushed to the satellite and destroyed it. When he returned, he scolded his co-workers, saying their lives were now worthless. They possessed the most guarded secret on Earth, and countless villains would hunt them down to extract it. As Alana later recalled, all of her co-workers eventually died. Some took their own lives, others died from overdoses. Despite the incident, the Plutonian was willing to forgive Alana, but she rejected him, saying she didn't even know who he really was. After this, the Plutonian abandoned his Dan Hardigan identity. The rise of the Plutonian also inspired other heroes to emerge. Some of them united to form a team. To earn the public's trust, the Plutonian made the announcement in front of the White House, delivering a speech and introducing his new team. He named the team Paradigm, not because they were above everyone else, but because they would hold themselves to the highest moral standards. Members of the team included Cubit, a super genius who could manipulate technology and strictly followed a no-kill rule; Hornet, a vigilante with no superpowers but a brilliant tactical mind; twins Scylla and Carrie, who wielded energy-based powers; Betty Noir, a vigilante with uncanny aim and specialized gravity bullets; Gilgamos, an immortal winged man similar to Hawkman from DC; and Volt, a black superhero with electric powers who was also heart and soul of the team.
Black
and Kaidan.
Superheroes always have electric powers, bro. It never fails, my nigga. Like, yo.
A Japanese hero who could summon powerful spirits from folklore through storytelling, among several other less prominent members. Together, they fought villains and alien invaders. Cubit invented teleportation technology, allowing the team to travel across the universe and help other worlds, insisting they shouldn't limit themselves to Earth. At this point, the Plutonian went by Tony and grew close to his teammates. Around this time, he was joined by Samsara, a young superhero who looked up to him and became his sidekick and apprentice. Samsara possessed a magical gem that granted him powers and protected him from mortal harm. The Plutonian grew fond of Samsara, appreciating both his loyalty and the admiration he received from him.
Very terrible.
2. Plutonian snaps.
God damn.
While happy as a superhero, this happiness wouldn't last. As mentioned many times in this video, the Plutonian's heroism was driven by his need for approval, not genuine concern for humanity. As a result, any bit of criticism hurt his ego immensely. With his super hearing, he would often hear people make fun of him. While most of the time he restrained himself, there were moments when he lashed out. The Plutonian especially hated when people were demanding, believing that what he was already doing was more than enough. His breaking point came during an incident involving the scientist named Dr. Seabrook. After Paradigm fought off another alien invasion, some scientists criticized the team for not sharing the alien technology. Cubit, the most intelligent member of the team, insisted that the technology was too advanced and dangerous, comparing sharing it to giving monkeys a hand grenade. Despite this, one of the scientists, Dr. Seabrook, continued speaking out. He frequently targeted the Plutonian, calling him selfish. It reached a point where no one could praise the hero without Seabrook responding with an insult. While his teammates dismissed Seabrook as just another populist, the Plutonian followed him closely. Sick and tired of the constant criticism, Tony decided to act. He visited Dr. Seabrook and shared a piece of alien technology, believing the scientist promised that it would benefit mankind. Seabrook was given some kind of sound-based device, which Tony believed to be safe. As a failsafe, he also gave Seabrook an SOS device that could summon him. It would emit a sound he could hear from anywhere on Earth. Before leaving, he asked Seabrook not to tell anyone about the meeting. Sometime later, during a routine patrol with a teammate, the Plutonian rescued a sailor. When the man asked him to fix the ship as well, Tony lashed out, saying he didn't owe him anything. At that moment, he was exhausted by the constant cries for help he heard through his super hearing. Overwhelmed, he flew to the moon for a few moments of peace. He stayed there for no more than 10 minutes, but when he returned and re-entered Earth's atmosphere, he realized his mistake. Seabrook had used the SOS device to call him while he was on the moon. The technology he had shared turned out to be catastrophic, emitting an airborne virus that killed thousands of children. The Plutonian insisted on handling the situation alone, but his team intervened and cleared the virus before it could spread further. Tony's involvement remained unknown to both the public and his teammates, but some researchers were aware of it. Seeing that the Plutonian wasn't admitting his involvement, they were too afraid to confront him directly and instead contacted Samsara. Sam learned about the Plutonian's involvement, hearing that Tony shared a technology and didn't bother checking if it was dangerous. He asked his mentor whether his scientists were telling the truth. When the Plutonian denied it, Samsara knew he was lying and expressed his disappointment. In response, the enraged Plutonian blasted Samsara's head with his heat vision, effectively lobotomizing him. Because of his powers, Samsara couldn't die, but he also couldn't regrow his brain tissue. He asked to be buried, effectively rendering him as good as dead. In a fit of rage, Tony attacked the scientists who had contacted Samsara, blaming them for his sidekick's fate. He destroyed the laboratory and killed all the scientists, declaring that he was tired of being perceived as a walking time bomb. Believing there was no turning back, the Plutonian declared that humanity deserved to be punished and set out to destroy Sky City, the city he once protected, much like Superman protects Metropolis. Among those observing the destruction was Max Damage. Interestingly, he had been on the verge of committing an act that would have made him irredeemable as well. Frustrated that his powers rendered his senses useless, Max raided a laboratory containing deadly airborne chemicals. Out of anger toward ordinary people who could taste, smell, and feel, Max planned to release the poison and claim countless lives. Before he could do so, however, the Plutonian attacked and destroyed the city. Max witnessed the entire catastrophe, and it changed him. He later recalled that this was the first time since gaining his powers that he truly felt something. Max admitted that while he hated the Plutonian, he never wanted him dead. He believed humanity needed someone like him and remembered how the Plutonian once forfeited a battle just to save a dog. Without Plutonian, Earth had nobody, so Max decided that it must have a hero. Distraught by the destruction, Max Damage abandoned villainy and set out on a path of redemption, destroying all the items and wealth he had acquired during his criminal career. His journey was chronicled in his own spin-off series, The Incorruptible, which also explored the fallout of the Plutonian's rampage on ordinary people. Max became the protector of his hometown, Colville, and surprisingly did a good job. While much of the world descended into chaos, Colville endured as an island of peace. Meanwhile, the destruction of Sky City killed millions of people, including several members of Paradigm. When the rest of the team arrived, the Plutonian defeated them as well, but ultimately spared their lives and fled the ruined city. He later went after Hornet, a member of Paradigm with no superpowers, and killed his entire family, sparing no one. A scene that opens the comic. The rest of Paradigm gathered to uncover the reason behind their former teammate's transformation and to figure out how to stop him. Using Cubit's teleportation technology, they moved across the globe, avoiding the Plutonian. They even dug up Samsara in an attempt to learn more about the Plutonian and his private life, but he was of no help. Cubit realized that the person who likely knew the most about Plutonian was his archenemy Modius, who had been missing for years. In an attempt to find him, Cubit created robots that thought and acted like Modius, hoping they could help locate the real villain. To aid with
Creating custom clothing with tap stitch is simple.
That
Start by choosing a garment, then click Design Now. On the left, you'll see
With the investigation, Cubit tracked down Plutonian's former girlfriend Alana, who was living in the ruins of Sky City. Apparently, some people still chose to live in the destroyed city, gambling that this is the only place Plutonian wouldn't return to. Kaidan was sent to talk to Alana, who shared her history with the former hero, how they met and how he revealed his identity to her, which ended poorly. When Kaidan offered help, Alana refused, saying that she's more concerned about others than herself, as Plutonian can find her from any point on Earth. From her, Paradigm learned about Plutonian's Dan Hardigan identity and that he might have been from Wyoming. Meanwhile, some of Plutonian's villains assembled for a secret meeting. They uncovered a base belonging to Inferno, a superhero and member of the Paradigm who was killed during Plutonian's rampage. The villains believed that the most powerful person on Earth had abandoned heroism and was now on their side. They gathered to discuss how they could use him to their advantage. Cubit, knowing about this meeting, sent the superhero twins, Carrie and Scylla, to spy on them, thinking the villains might know something they did not. While exploring the base, the villains realized that Inferno had treated it as a second home, even having a living room. When they entered the kitchen, they saw the Plutonian heating coffee with his laser vision. He spoke no words and simply walked around the base. When one of the villains tried to draw a weapon, Plutonian immediately blasted him. He then asked if anybody else was willing to scratch their itch. The lead villain, the Fixer, asked him one question: what kind of world do we live in now? To which Plutonian responded that they live in a world of ungrateful, bitter people who are in a perpetual state of rage for not having their problems fixed fast enough. He expressed his frustration, saying that he does amazing things for humans every day, yet his actions are treated like a magic trick for a dog, which forced him to build a home in the volcano in hopes that the noise would drown everything out. Cubit made a note of this last piece of information, thinking it was important. Fixer then proposed an alliance, to which Plutonian responded that they would have to first earn his trust. He gave the villains remotes, but didn't explain what they did. He then said that if they were serious about teaming up, they would throw their weapons away. Before Plutonian could even finish the sentence, all the villains pressed the buttons immediately. Cubit, realizing what was happening, urged Scylla and Carrie to flee the base at once. Their remotes activated a self-destruct sequence, which destroyed the area. Plutonian emerged unscathed and discovered that one other villain, Encanta, survived as well due to a force shield. He approached her and asked how she would look in a wig before taking her to his base. The twins were caught in the explosion, and one of them, Scylla, was seemingly killed. Carrie survived but was in critical condition, and it looked like he had lost his powers. He was recovered by the Paradigm and began healing at their base. In the meantime, world governments gathered at the United Nations headquarters to discuss the Plutonian. Representatives of the US explained that they had tried every weapon they possessed and were unsuccessful. He urged all nations to unite against the Plutonian, but much to his surprise, other countries were hesitant. A representative from Kenya explained that his country was willing to extend an open hand instead of a fist, and invited Plutonian to become their nation's sovereign. Representatives from China and Japan also chimed in, offering concessions as well. The American politicians stopped the discussion, saying that no one knows what Plutonian truly seeks. At that moment, the villain arrived, froze the politician, and then shattered the ice. He said that he enjoyed the discussion and urged everyone to continue. Different politicians began offering him political power and wealth. In response, Plutonian chose one random politician and asked why he should choose him. It was a representative of Singapore who explained that his country needs strength and guidance, and that they're grateful for Plutonian's service. Using his enhanced senses, Plutonian felt the man's fear, which angered him. He left the headquarters and flew into space, where he began launching meteors towards Singapore. Paradigm immediately learned of this and set out to rescue people. Plutonian then caused an earthquake, and Cubit realized he was about to sink an entire country. He began rescuing people using his teleporter, but Tony arrived and snatched the device from his hand. He begged his former teammate to return it, saying that he needed to save these people. Plutonian simply responded with 2 words: choose 10. Cubit objected, saying there were millions, but Tony didn't listen. In the end, Cubit had to choose 10 random people, and Plutonian vaporized the rest, telling Cubit that this is what it feels like to have great power but not be able to save everyone. He allowed his former teammates to flee and then sank the entire country, killing millions. To instill further paranoia, Plutonian sent a broadcast to all devices worldwide. He spoke about private conversations of certain individuals who had criticized him and revealed some of their personal information as well. Before ending the broadcast, he said that he can be anywhere. He could be anyone's neighbor or coworker, and that no one is safe.
Nah, that's insane. That's scary, bro.
Part 3. The Fall of Paradigm. Back at Paradigm Space, the heroes discussed their next move. Volt reminisced about how he joined the team in his encounter with the Plutonian after he went rogue. Volt is a hero who likes to joke around, and during Plutonian's rampage, he jokingly said that he'd give up his left arm for him. In response, Plutonian broke and ripped out his arm. Cubit, meanwhile, made a significant breakthrough. His Modius robots found Plutonian's secret base in a volcano, which could also point toward Modius's location. Suddenly, the Modius robots went rogue and began attacking the heroes. They were dealt with easily, but one of them went through the stash containing Samsara's belongings. There, it found an SOS device used to summon the Plutonian and activated it. Realizing the Plutonian was heading toward them, Cubit came up with a plan. Knowing Plutonian's base was now empty, they teleported there. Carrie, however, stayed behind, saying that if he no longer had powers, he was expendable and would buy his team time. When Plutonian reached the base, he found only Carrie, who did something unexpected. He played a video of the incident that caused Plutonian to snap and revealed that he knew about his involvement. During the cleanup, Carrie noted how quickly Tony figured out the virus's origin and how unusually startled he seemed that day. Apparently, Carrie had seen Plutonian's SOS device at the scene of the incident, but didn't give it much thought, until he saw another one a few minutes ago. At that moment, everything clicked. Plutonian was somehow involved in the incident that killed thousands. Finally, Carrie revealed that Tony isn't the only one with a secret. He hadn't actually lost his powers, quite the opposite. After his brother's death, all of his power transferred to Carrie, making him incredibly strong. He could not only match Plutonian, but also overpower him. Someone was strong enough to stand against him. Carrie went on to beat the villain into submission. Meanwhile, the rest of the Paradigm explored Plutonian's base inside the volcano and found very strange things. Plutonian had kept remnants of
That nigga's golden, bro. Oh, nah, son.
Some people from the incident that made him snap, as well as an entire room dedicated to betting of some base who went on to beat the villain into submission. Meanwhile, the rest of the Paradigm explored Plutonian's base inside the volcano and found very strange things. Plutonian had kept remnants of some people from the incident that made him snap, as well as an entire room dedicated to Betty Noir, his teammate. But the strangest thing they found was Encanta, a villain he had captured earlier, dressed in Betty Noir's costume. Unable to find anything else, they left the base and returned to Carrie, who was beating Plutonian senseless. Upon seeing the rest of the team, Plutonian fled to an unexpected place, Samsara's grave. Suddenly, Samsara woke up, seemingly not remembering what had happened. Plutonian was surprised and embraced his former sidekick, unaware that this wasn't Samsara but Modius possessing his body. After interrogating Encanta, Cubit uncovered where Modius had gone. Using her magic, he had transformed himself into a living bit of information, gaining the ability to take control of other people's minds. With Modius's help, Plutonian tracked down his first foster family, who were hiding in a remote town and apparently hadn't spoken a word since they returned him to the foster home. The villain confronted them, saying that he was abandoned for making one mistake, while all of his good deeds were ignored. He added that Joey, their biological son, received unconditional love despite doing nothing special. Seeing how utterly terrified his former foster parents were of him, Plutonian lashed out again and blasted them both, leaving their special needs son alive. Meanwhile, Carrie assembled the press to make an announcement. He adopted a new superhero title, the Survivor, and boasted to the public about how he defeated Plutonian. He painted himself as a savior and a symbol of hope, and when people looked at him with concern, he lashed out, asking why they weren't cheering. His increased power, combined with the loss of his brother, began affecting his psyche. Survivor, as well as other members of Paradigm, have interesting character arcs of their own, but to keep this video concise, let's focus mostly on the Plutonian. Observing all these events, what remained of the American military, now effectively in charge of the country, became increasingly desperate. Seeing all other superheroes as potential threats and their weapons as useless, they made a very strange decision. They summoned Orion, a demon from another dimension who previously tried to invade Earth but was stopped by the Paradigm. You've heard it right, the military summoned a literal devil as part of their plan. They asked him to deal with the superhero problem knowing that Orion sought to conquer Earth. Meanwhile, Gil confronted his wife Betty about what they had seen at Plutonian's base, suspecting an affair. Before the conversation could continue, Orion arrived and ripped off Gilgamos's wings. Being a demon, he was intrigued by the overheard conversation and demanded more information. Betty agreed to share it in exchange for her husband's life. She revealed that she did indeed have an affair with the Plutonian, but that wasn't her only secret. Sometime after joining Paradigm, she found herself attracted to him and even visited his base, becoming the only member of the team to do so. There, Plutonian revealed a secret. He had discovered a candle that stripped him of his superpowers while it burned. He used it to be intimate with Betty, but unknown to him, she collected some of the candle wax and kept it all this time. Even after Plutonian went rogue, she kept this secret hidden. If it wasn't clear by this point, one of the recurring themes of Irredeemable is that no one here is truly a good person. Even Cubit, arguably the most morally righteous character in the series, does some questionable things. The rest of the Paradigm tracked down Orion to rescue their teammates. During the battle, they noted how powerful Orion was, with only Plutonian being strong enough to defeat him. But before the fight could truly begin, the team was arrested by the military, except for Betty and Survivor, who managed to escape. Survivor made a deal with Orion. He would help him defeat the Plutonian. Meanwhile, Betty broke out her teammates, only to discover that Gil had already escaped by breaking off his second wing and using it to unlock his cell. The group teleported to Betty's home to retrieve the wax fragment, but when they arrived, they found it in Gil's possession, crafted into a bullet. Gil revealed that he had allied himself with Survivor and Orion and intended to kill the Plutonian. Betty joined them as well, tempted by the chance to redeem herself by killing the villain. Cubit objected, arguing that Orion was just as evil and intended to conquer Earth, but he was ignored. They teleported to the Grand Canyon where they saw Samsara and an enraged Plutonian flying toward them. Their plan was to contain Plutonian in one place, allowing Betty to take the shot. The fight was so devastating that it caused earthquakes dozens of miles away. Cubit and the rest of the team arrived as well, debating whether he should intervene. The Survivor confronted Cubit, telling him not to interfere, and Cubit promised he wouldn't. Meanwhile, Volt was approached by Samsara, possessed by Modius, who tricked him into following him. When no one was looking, Modius pushed Volt off a cliff, killing him. After a brutal battle, Survivor and Orion...
That's how dude goes out? Getting pushed off of a fucking cliff? Bro, he is a superhero. He goes out by getting pushed off of a cliff? That is bullshit.
Orion managed to restrain the Plutonian, and Betty took her shot. Cubit, however, broke his promise and intervened. He opened a portal and redirected the bullet away from Plutonian and toward Orion, killing the demon but saving Plutonian's life. The villain then fled with Modius. Angered by Cubit's intervention, Survivor pushed him aside, but Cubit battle. When no one was looking, Modius pushed Volt off a cliff, killing him. After a brutal battle, Survivor and Orion managed to restrain the Plutonian, and Betty took her shot. Cubit, however, broke his promise and intervened. He opened a portal and redirected the bullet away from Plutonian and toward Orion, killing the demon but saving Plutonian's life. The villain then fled with Modius. Angered by Cubit's intervention, Survivor pushed him aside, saying that he was now responsible for the death of millions. Betty and Gil left as well, and with Volt dead, the team was falling apart. Unknown to everyone, Cubit had secretly recovered the bullet, intending to use it at a later date. Part 4. Exile and Return. Plutonian and Modius return to Sky City, where they uncover a gem Plutonian was supposed to gift to Samsara. Modius explains that the gem has potent regenerative abilities, and with enough power, it can restore Sky City and bring all its people back to life. Plutonian becomes convinced that he might have a chance at redemption and undoing his mistakes. He blasts the gem, but nothing happens. Plutonian then explains that only one person is smart enough to determine how the gem works. Modius. He reminisces about the villain, saying he never understood his motivations, until one day he discovered Modius's base, where he saw him constructing near-perfect cybernetic replicas of Plutonian. At that moment, everything clicked. Plutonian can actually see the pheromones people emit and sense what they feel, but he had never paid much attention to it. After seeing the lab, he realized something strange and unexpected. Modius was actually in love, but due to his psychopathy, he could only express it through rage and destruction. Plutonian then turns to Samsara and reveals that he knew Modius had possessed his former sidekick. noticing the change in mannerisms. He said he cannot look at his sidekick's face knowing it was actually Modius, and blasts it with his heat vision. Meanwhile, Cubit goes to a small town in Iowa where local farmers are struggling to make ends meet. Using his powers, he fixes their machinery, and the people are grateful. At that moment, the survivor arrives. He continues to scold Cubit for intervening, and then reveals to the crowd that Cubit saved Plutonian's life. After hearing this, the crowd turns on Cubit and beats him senseless. But the survivor intervenes and shields him. He calls Cubit a hypocrite, saying he broke his no-kill rule by killing Orion, but refuses to kill the Plutonian. Cubit, however, affirms his position. Still believing that Tony can be redeemed, he insists they can deal with him without resorting to murder. When asked how, Cubit reveals that Hornet had already proven it. Cubit shows a message his teammate left before his death. Hornet had apparently expected Plutonian to snap and devised a contingency plan. For the longest time, Hornet suspected nothing and considered Tony his best friend. But during a game of poker, Plutonian casually asked how his wife Donna was doing. Hornet realized he had never told Tony his wife's name, and from that moment he couldn't shake his paranoia. When Paradigm fought off an invasion by an alien race they nicknamed Vespa, Hornet infiltrated their base. He made an unexpected deal with the Vespa leaders. He gave them Cubit's teleportation technology, allowing them to travel through space more efficiently. That, however, wasn't enough, and Hornet did something desperate. He shared Paradigm's data about alien worlds. Most of the worlds they had helped were underdeveloped but rich in resources. Hornet exchanged this information along with the teleportation technology for a truce. In return, he asked the Vespas to help Earth against the Plutonian if he ever went rogue. The aliens agreed and left the planet. Hornet would occasionally contact them and share his team's intel, dooming countless alien worlds in the process. After Hornet was killed, a message was automatically sent to the Vespas, and Cubit has now uncovered this plan. He reveals that he's been carrying a proximity sensor and that the Vespas are already here. Using their advanced technology, they fight the villain who struggles to retaliate. The Vespas have weaponized Cubit's technology, using it to deflect Plutonian's attacks. The villain then channels his super speed and kills several of the Vespas. At that moment, Survivor and Kaidan intervene and, using their powers, manage to restrain Tony. The Vespas prepare to capture him, but suddenly Plutonian escapes. He kills all the aliens and grabs Samsara's gem, using it to restore Sky City along with all its inhabitants. However, this turns out to be an illusion, a mental prison created by the Vespas, a technique they use on prisoners. The aliens then leave Earth, stating that they are beings of honor and will keep their word not to conquer the planet. Finally, the world is at peace and Plutonian is gone. Survivor makes a public announcement but over-promises. He not only declares peace, but also vows to build a utopia, even offering villains amnesty and a chance to join the new paradigm. Plutonian, meanwhile, is in a deep trance. He lives in a fantasy world where he's once again a hero, unconditionally worshipped by everyone. When the Vespas try to wake him, they fail, realizing that Plutonian chooses to remain in the illusion. They equip him with an exoskeleton and use his body to mine on a harsh world with extreme gravity. However, their plan fails. They struggle to contain him, as even while trapped in his fantasy, Plutonian occasionally acts in the real world, killing other prisoners. Realizing he will cause too many problems, the Vespas decide to eliminate him. They imprison him and drop his cell into the center of a star. Plutonian continues living in his fantasy and begins seeing a new figure, a masked individual who acts as his friend. Eventually, Tony wakes up and finds himself in what appears to be an alien hospital. When he exits, he realizes he's in the middle of a sun. Then he sees something even stranger. The masked figure from his dream is real and informs him where he is. The stranger explains that the place is called Genham, and that no one has ever escaped it. He also reveals that Genham is not a prison, as Plutonian assumed, but an intergalactic insane asylum. Back on Earth, Cubit makes a very questionable decision. One of the villains recruited by Survivor has mind-reading powers. Cubit asked him to read Survivor's mind and uncover his true motives. Disturbed by what he learns, Cubit is approached by Modius, now possessing one of the robots, who proposes an alliance. Cubit accepts, and together they set out to find the Plutonian. Back on Genham, the stranger proposes a team-up, but Plutonian is hesitant. He wants to know who's under the mask, but when he blasts it off, he sees that he's a regular human, or at least appears to be one. The two of them team up and set a course toward the control room, but along the way they encounter some of the most dangerous creatures in the universe. As the stranger explains, Genham is home to galactic criminals who are too powerful to be killed. Along the way, Plutonian fights off multiple powerful beings and even manages to recruit some of them. He's joined by two beastly creatures who are incredibly powerful. Plutonian also recruits the alien he nicknames Cutter, who, by cutting herself, actually injures someone else. Finally, the team is joined by Malice, an alien with a very strange ability. He can reverse time by a few minutes by punching someone. As they approach their destination, Plutonian tells his new team that all 5 of them will be taken to Earth, but one of the aliens points out that there are 6 of them. Plutonian agrees and turns toward the stranger who's been helping them all along. Throughout the entire journey, he felt that the stranger's face seemed familiar but couldn't understand why. He finally remembers. It is the face of the pilot he saved years ago during his first public appearance as a superhero. The stranger reveals himself to be a parasitic alien that feeds on other people's dreams. In response, Plutonian kills it and continues on his path. Meanwhile, Cubit and Modius meet with the Vespas. Their leader is hesitant to help, saying that if they're pressured further, they will declare war. In response, Cubit reminds him that he is the creator of the teleportation technology the Vespas use to expand their empire, and that he can shut it down immediately. To prove his point, he destroys one of the Vespa ships and uses his teleporter to cut off the leader's hand. The Vespas finally relent and share the coordinates of Ginham. On their way, Modius makes a surprising revelation. Plutonian's powers are more complex than initially believed. His powers are not actually physical, they're psionic. For example, he flies by shifting the mass around him and subconsciously manipulates the density of matter to toughen his skin. Tony himself does not realize the full extent of his powers and believes he can simply punch very hard. Cubit remarks that he should have figured this out long ago, and Modius revealed that he did. But Modius intervened and made him forget. As Modius explains, he wanted to be the one who knew Tony best. They arrive at Ginham's control room and ask the staff about the Plutonian, but when one of the aliens checks the monitors, they immediately flee in terror. Plutonian finally enters the control room, where he sees Cubit and Modius, much to his surprise. He orders the aliens to attack Cubit, who manages to shield himself. In desperation, Cubit destroys his teleporter, effectively trapping both himself and the Plutonian on Ginham. However, he failed to account for one massive problem: Malice, the time-reversing alien. Plutonian asks Malice to punch him, and he is sent a few minutes into the past. He then flees with his team to Earth moments before the teleporter is destroyed. The Modius robot that accompanied Cubit shuts down, and Cubit is left trapped with Malice on an alien world, while Plutonian is loose once again. Part 5. The end of the Plutonian. During Plutonian's absence, the Earth celebrated. The American president, who's the former commander-in-chief, made a public speech announcing a new economic partnership with several countries to rebuild the nation. At that exact moment, Plutonian returned. He flew into space and, using his heat vision, drew his logo across the North American continent, destroying countless cities. When the public learned of the villain's return, they rioted, losing faith in both the governments and the paradigm. Plutonian and his new team chose an unexpected base, a hotel in North Korea. He then set his sights on the new paradigm, led by the survivor and consisting of former villains. He wrecked the team, but Carrie managed to flee. Tony then sought out Betty, who was living in Los Angeles and had settled in an abandoned mansion. She assumed Plutonian was going to kill her, but much to her surprise, he recruited her into his team. Betty hated this and attempted to take her own life multiple times, but Plutonian always saved her. Meanwhile, the president was approached by 2 representatives from China and Japan. They proposed an alliance, revealing that they had possessed an anti-Plutonian gambit this entire time, but using it would doom 1/3 of the Earth's population. They argued, however, that if they did not act, all of humanity would die at the hands of the Plutonian. After some consideration, the president accepted. All 3 pressed a remote connected to a facility off the coast of China. That base contained only one man, who was constantly speaking into a microphone. Suddenly, a massive explosion devastated the area and killed him. In its place, 2 massive alien entities emerged. Back at the White House, the visiting representatives explained that those entities might have a connection to the Plutonian, but they had no means of controlling them. For omitting this final detail earlier, the president demanded their arrest. He later learned that the explosion had unleashed radiation that would devastate the Earth. Back with the Plutonian, he left his base and submerged himself underwater to think about his next move. Cutter used this opportunity to approach Betty and revealed himself as Modius. He transferred his mind into Betty, saying she was a perfect vessel. The alien entities then confronted Plutonian. Upon finding him, they revealed themselves as his birth parents. They dragged Tony through a portal and brought him to the end of time, saying he should be punished for his actions and that he was a mistake. In response, Tony demanded an explanation. The aliens revealed themselves as the Elios, powerful beings who gather and protect knowledge. Similar to the Watchers from Marvel, Two of them had arrived on Earth and were fascinated by humanity. They said they had never seen such an emotionally rich and complex species before. To further explore humanity, they created a probe and placed it among the native population. By pure chance, the probe was drawn to a mother who had killed her own child, and sensing her intense emotions, it transformed into a human infant. That woman, however, was mentally unwell and later attempted the same act again. She locked herself in a car with plutonium and filled it with gas. While she died, Plutonian survived and was rescued. He would later be adopted by various families, as discussed earlier. Meanwhile, the Elios were discovered and have been captured. They could have left at any moment, but they knew that the radiation released by their escape would doom humanity, so they chose not to. After learning his origin, Plutonian realized the full extent of his powers. He asked the Elios to take him with him, but the aliens refused. Instead, they sent him to the end of time as punishment. As plutonium floated in the void, unexpected help arrived. It was Cubit, accompanied by Max Damage. Cubit explained that while trapped on an alien world, he used Malice's power to create a time loop. He was able to recruit his own variants, and together they recreated the teleportation technology. After returning to Earth, he saw the planet consumed by radiation. He immediately sought out the Plutonian and recruited Max Damage along the way for extra muscle. Cubit said he had a plan to save Earth, but it involved Tony. In exchange, he offered him a chance at redemption, saying he could use Malice's power to rewind the clock. Unknown to Plutonian, however, Malice was dead. Max Damage, upon hearing this, quit, saying that Cubit was allowing Plutonian to kill even more people. As the first part of his plan, Cubit helps Tony gain full control of his new abilities. Through training, Plutonian learns telepathy and telekinesis. With his help, Cubit creates alloys from a specific mineral that are supposed to cleanse the Earth of radiation. Plutonian launches them from space, but the plan doesn't work. Cubit remarks that the radiation is more dangerous than they believed, and that it will wipe out all life on Earth within 3 generations. He also adds that most of the people who designed the radiation are dead or missing, but one of the scientists was Modius. Upon hearing his name, Plutonian realizes that Modius wasn't actually trapped on an alien planet, he must have possessed someone. He immediately puts 2 and 2 together and returns to his base, where he meets Modius, now in control of Betty's body. The villain has unlocked the full potential of Betty's powers, revealing that her gravity manipulation is far stronger than most believed. With this ability, Modius beats and immobilizes Tony. He then attempts to force himself on the Plutonian, with Tony unable to hurt Betty. This is when Cubit arrives. Using his teleportation technology, he splits Modius.
This nigga is... Bro, that nigga... What the fuck is wrong with this nigga? Mobius, bro, what the fuck? Yo, nah. Hey, yo, bro. He's on some Kenjaku shit, man. Yo. He was Kenjaku before Kenjaku. That's crazy, man. Yo.
The villain is still too powerful. He immobilizes Cubit as well. Cubit then begs the Plutonian to intervene and stop Modius, but Tony taunts him, saying he's a hypocrite for not following his no-kill rule. He tells Cubit that he needs to hear him say he wants Modius to be killed, and with no other choice, Cubit relents. Plutonian obliges and strikes Modius, who immediately transfers his mind into Cubit's body. The hero, however, expected this. He had built a failsafe into his mind. Modius is finally dealt with, and as a bonus, Cubit also gains access to his knowledge about the radiation. Cubit then explains that Betty's powers can be used to cleanse the Earth of radiation. They can serve as an attractor, absorbing the radiation like a magnet. The problem is that they have to carry this magnet across the entire planet in a short amount of time. This is where the Plutonian comes in, but Tony is hesitant. He reveals that using his newly unlocked powers, he peered into Cubit's mind and saw that the time-traveling alien is dead, and that Cubit's promise of redemption is a lie. Tony beats him, but Cubit defends himself, arguing that this promise still stands. As a final threat, he says he'll have to break his rule again. He reveals that he still possesses a bullet that can kill the Plutonian. Using his teleporter, he lodges it in Tony's heart. If he dies or takes his mind off of it for even a second, the bullet will explode, killing him. Tony argues that he can find at least a dozen ways out of this situation, to which Cubit responds by asking if he's willing to gamble his life that he's smarter. Realizing the situation, Plutonian agrees. He flies around the world and begins absorbing the radiation. In the meantime, the rest of the Paradigm have their own adventure, which isn't covered in this video. They apparently discover the seeds of life, which, if planted, would sever the connection between life and death. All of Earth would become immortal, but no births could happen either. Before they can plant the seeds, Cubit teleports in and tells them to save them as a plan B. He shows them that Plutonian is cleansing the planet. For the first time in a very long time, the team feels hopeful. Tony circles the Earth, and the plan works. The planet is cleansed, but the combined energy is too much even for the Plutonian. He crash lands near Cubit, his body ravaged. Tony says that he's been deceived and that the promise of redemption was a lie, but Cubit responds that he's still keeping his word. Using Modius's genius, Cubit upgrades his teleportation technology and can now access the multiverse. As Plutonian's body collapses, he reverts to his original form, the probe that Ilios created. Cubit says that the Plutonian is an idea brought to life, and while that doesn't excuse his actions, it wasn't entirely his fault that his creation was flawed. He splits Plutonian's essence across the multiverse, saying that someone across time and space will find it and remake it into something good. In one universe, the essence inspires two young boys to create their own superhero. The comic concludes with these two boys drawing an image of a superhero, and they reveal to be Jerry Siegel and Joe Shuster, the creators of Superman. And this is where the story of the Plutonian ends. Did you?
That was a dope story, man. No kizzy.
I think we all know at this point that predator catching is probably one of the most amazing yet dangerous things you can do content creation wise. And it's especially a good thing since they are literally getting paid to catch predators and get them arrested, and if not, humiliate them and ruin their life forever. Now, whether it's for the cause or for the money, lots of people have been tuning into this. Most notable being Skeeter Gene and Gideon, which are currently the biggest predator catching channels on YouTube. Now, if you've been watching their videos, you might notice a reoccurring pattern with these preds. They always stress. Obviously, everyone knows that once a predator gets caught, their life is basically over, regardless if they're sent to jail or not. And how serious the situation may be, their way of trying to save their own lives can be absolutely comical. It's usually the same thing, such as, I thought she was 18, I came here to teach the kid a lesson, or claiming that they were hacked. However, some of them can be absolutely ridiculous, such as this one who completely denies his attraction to females after he's been caught.
I'm gay.
You like guys, so that's why you're on Grindr.
Yeah.
Okay.
Or this pred who seriously blames his girlfriend for him being caught.
She's been out for me, honestly. I don't even get to see my kids very often.
Okay. So she's going on these apps, posing as you, talking to 13-year-old girls and sending pictures of your
I would, that's the only person who's got my news, truthfully.
He lies so much and he doesn't even know how stupid the lies are, which is basically the summary of most of these preds. However, this shows that they would go for the utmost extent of lying to get themselves out of the situation. So much so that it's not always words that are being used. Now you guys have to realize that these preds are fully aware of the fact that there are consequences and that their lives are permanently destroyed, which puts them not in the right state of mind. And this can cause a huge risk of safety, and Skeeter knows it.
Well, you know, we all go into it with the mindset of, you know, anything can happen, and we're all on board with taking the risk.
Which is also a reason for a safe and professional approach.
And, you know, I'm pretty much always calm and collective the whole time, and nothing really gets...
Pred catchers has to have, like, the best jobs in the world, especially dads against predators. They literally beat predators up and get paid to do it. That's literally the best job in the world. I don't care what nobody says.
Escalator where anyone's getting heated or anything like that. So that's another thing. On top of that, I always come out in this, you know, the suit jacket and the badge, and I look pretty official. So 9 times out of 10, they usually think I'm like police or something.
And luckily, Gideon understands it too.
The thing is, you want to keep them as calm as possible, because at the end of the day, you know, their life is at risk right now, so they're liable to, like Alex, he's had preds go in their house, close their doors, cock their gun back, and
Wow.
2.
This way of catching predators ensures a lot more safety, which is the complete opposite approach of That's Against Predators. DAP is a predator catching group owned by 2 individuals named Joshua Mundy and Jay Carnicum, and they are mostly known for their complete uncautious way of catching predators and straight up using physical contact against them.
That's what you should be on their dick.
And with terrible things happening in their past,
I had something happen in my family where a guy a kid, and I would like go to his jobs because he didn't go to jail or anything like that. So I would go to his jobs and like let people know like this is what this guy's doing.
A lot of the reason why I wanted to do this and why I'm so passionate about it is because that happened to me, and I know there's those types of guys out there catching predators.
It seems like they are doing it out of passion. However, it hasn't always been like that, as Joshua himself has said that he only resorted to cussing.
And believe it or not, when I was on YouTube, we didn't beat these guys up, we didn't smack these guys, we occasionally called them a bitch or something like that.
Jay and Joshua had started catching in 2020.
We just started kicking it heavily. We play 2K all the time, just chilling.
Before realizing how surprisingly easy it was.
We did, as soon as we caught, like, you know, as soon as we tried, like, the first 5 minutes, I had somebody.
As they got 3 people in just 24 hours.
First day we got 3 people. First 24 hours we got 3 people. It was on the news, and police were having press conferences about us. It was fast.
And it was indeed on the news.
It's a video that's made an impression online.
Why do you think you beat him? Because you're wild. You're a predator, and you're doing things in my town. You're doing in my town that we don't around with.
And everything happened so fast that the law enforcement has recommended them to stop or potentially face legal trouble.
My fear is, by doing these types of things, they're going to stir up a hornet's nest, and all they're really doing is exposing these people, maybe embarrassing them, and then they walk free.
But despite pleas from law enforcement, That's Against Predators shows no signs of slowing down, especially since they have an audience that absolutely loves it. They even used to have a pretty successful YouTube channel with over 180,000 subscribers and over 190 videos. Now it's important to note that this is the only screenshot I could find of their YouTube channel, so it could have been even more. But this did not sit right with the guidelines of YouTube, which got their channel banned. But YouTube is not the only place that they have been banned from. Because of the physical violence that they use, the group had been banned from multiple Ohio stores. Now to say that they didn't have any impact would be wrong. If we set the lives that have been ruined aside, they also started facing issues with their strategy to confront potential offenders, as the more the group met up with men, the more future targets would grow wary of whether they were talking to a real child or a member of That's Against Predators, making their city arguably a safer place. However, that is not the only impact that they had. As of 2021, the group was alleged to have been tied to sides of 3 people that had accused of sexual misconduct, and this created new thoughts of dangerous possibilities that could happen.
2 people have killed themselves because of our videos, you know. So if you're willing to kill yourself, like, why not kill me and then kill yourself, you know? So as soon as I opened up, I'm like, whoa, this is real world. This isn't just YouTube, you know? Like, we're not just out here. This isn't a game, you know? This is real life.
However, despite their fully awareness of the risks, they pretty much became even crazier, which would be the biggest reason for their fame. This created the most iconic videos of their online presence.
Hey, don't grab my phone. Why'd you gonna meet a 13-year-old? Why'd you gonna meet a 13-year-old boy? This man was trying to meet a 13-year-old boy for sex. This guy was trying to meet a 13-year-old boy for sex. What city we in? Albany?
They would often interview the pred before unexpectedly slapping them.
I don't know, bro.
Alright.
You don't know?
That was 2 hearts.
Do you want to get the police involved? So you're not here to meet a 13-year-old girl?
No. Chappelle.
My bad, Josh.
Chappelle.
My bad, Josh.
But it's not always unexpected. Sometimes they would make them give permission to be slapped.
One more for the home team.
Alright. You want one? You want one? Yeah.
Nice clean one.
But basically, all of them are just straight up bullying.
Don't touch me. Don't fucking touch me. Please.
Now, as beautiful this content may be, it does have some issues which people have criticized. In the end, this does nothing at all. Now you risk getting charged with assault. Just go through the proper channels and work with authorities. So instead of reporting them and having these people titled as sexual predators, they get beat up and a second chance? Which does beg the question, why won't they call the police? Well, Joshua has stated that this simply doesn't work.
I want the worst for him. But at the end of the day, I started this because I don't think the judicial system, I don't think the justice system cares about us. They show it in where they spend their money, they show it in where they spend their resources, where they spend their time. The prison systems aren't even keeping these guys. I need you to kind of understand that when predators get arrested, they get put on probation. My goal here is to create a culture where we're not nice to people. We don't look the other way. We don't go like, oh my God, I heard that guy's a blah, 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 stay away from him. No, we push these people away. We get these people out of our cities.
However, it's safe to say that people absolutely love them. Now, as obvious as to why they use violence on these predators, Joshua went into detail explaining why the way he does it.
Violence is a universal language. People that speak Arabic know violence. People that speak Mandarin know violence. You speak Spanish, you know violence. It's a tool that has been used to create freedom. It's a tool that has been used to liberate, and it's a tool that has been used for good. The root of pedophilia, in my opinion, is power. Because these guys want power.
I told them niggas I'll do that shit, then I went and did it.
They are searching for a person to be more powerful than. And
I be getting on the game, nigga.
Damn, bro.
Yeah, man, it's like that.
It's like that, bro.
It's like that. Bro, I'm so fucking pissed, bro. I've been up and down, up and down. I cannot get to this promo.
Yeah, it be like that, bro.
My cousin just said that same shit. Now I'm G60 right now.
I'll soon get on. I'll soon get on. 1 second. Wait, let me use the bathroom. And then